15 Gears of War 4 tips and tricks to help you set up to beat Heads Down Horde and Feral Horde easily. Stay tuned. Hey guys, it's Chris with Blind Man's Bluff Gaming. Welcome back, and I hope you're doing awesome. If you're new to the channel, are you looking for more Gears of War 4 Horde tips and tricks videos? Then go ahead and smash that subscribe button. You can find guides for every Horde class, including Engineer and Scout. Now these Horde tips and tricks are for any Horde game, but are especially important for Horde variants like Gears of War 4 Heads Down Horde, where your margin of error is smaller. Do these things right, it's going to seem really easy. Do them wrong, and you're going to be in a hurt locker. Team composition. First of all, I recommend having an experienced level 7 or higher Scout and Engineer with level 5 skills. Heads Down Horde is definitely not the place you want to be training in a new Scout or Engineer, or bring in your level 3 Scout and, hey, I'll level this dude up. Not in this mode. Scout build. Your Scout build should be focusing on gathering power during combat because it effectively doubles the power you're picking up. The waves in Heads Down Horde can end abruptly, so your Scout needs to be gathering as much power in combat as possible. Deposit bonus level 5. Now this skill is an absolute must because it increases your power on deposit by 50%, whether you pick it up during combat or after. If you want an in-depth guide on running Scout and the different builds you can run with him, there'll be an annotation on screen right about now. Your second skill, health boost. Your third skill, pickup radius. Your fourth skill, health regen boost. And I recommend for your fifth skill, Energize or speed, whatever you like. Your engineer build. The first skill, which is again an absolute must, is repair boost level 5. This decreases your cost for repairing by 50% and increases your repair speed. Now you can get by without this for, maybe level 2, maybe level 3 fabricator, but after that you have to have it. Your second skill is barrier health. Your barriers are going to take an absolute pounding from all the salvos getting launched at them, along with the pouncers, DR salvos, etc. Now in a little bit I'll share with you a tip on how you can effectively double your barrier's strength. But first, your next skill for your engineer needs to be turret discount, then sentry discount, and your final skill I recommend sentry capacity. Now with all the pouncers, DRs, guardians, your sentries will be shooting constantly, and they'll need to be. Having sentry capacity will allow them to keep shooting and give you some margin on your repair circuit. The rest of the team, your team composition. Now Heads Down Horde is a salvo buffet. Your heavies are preferred unless you have a soldier with Hammer of Dawn. Now for your heavy, I recommend your first skill be heavy weapon damage, second skill explosive launcher damage, which also affects the salvos, third skill explosive launcher capacity, which also applies again to the salvos, which will increase them up to I believe 30 or 32, and then your fourth skill turret damage, and fifth skill mark damage. Note, the mortar strike does work on the Swarmak, so it might be useful to run, but it's useless on the Kestrel. But there are only two bosses in Heads Down Horde, it's the Kestrel and Swarmak. Another thing you might want to consider is having a guy run Team Revive. And again, if you want to maybe have a fifth guy that you're carrying a little bit, just put him on a turret and he should be fine if you want to level him up or something like that. Base location. I suggest setting up in the spawn where you start the game. I played in both spawns and the starting spawn is night and day easier. Base building tips. Tip number 1. Stay fairly spread out in your base so one salvo or Swarmak rocket barrage doesn't wipe out the whole team. Now this means spreading out not only your turrets but your weapon lockers. Tip number 2. If you don't have barrier health, build them in an X pattern, and this was the tip I was alluding to earlier. Build them in an X pattern, which effectively doubles their strength. Now the last thing you want to happen on Heads Down Horde, or any Horde variant, is to have your barriers go down. Tip number 3, If you place your sentries right next to the wall, you can refill them from cover on either side. Tip number 4, build a few shock sentries to slow down the rush. Not only will they slow down the rush, but they will also help you take down the shields of the sentries quicker. Now here's a tip for them. Don't set them out too far so they don't slow down the rounds. What'll happen is they'll start shooting the guys in the center of the map, and all of a sudden you're going to get longer and longer waves. Tip number 5, if someone goes down and you're picking them up, call it out so you don't have 2 or 3 people rushing to pick up one person instead of shooting. Now again, Heads Down Horde is all about DPS, so you're going to have a ton of big enemies coming at you at one time, so it's critical that you have as much damage going out at one time as possible. Now here's a tip: if you're playing in public and nobody's talking, which is pretty standard, I'll go ahead and wait and check my TACCOM first if someone goes down to see if someone else is picking them up, and then I'll pick them up. Tip number 6, build a sentry or 2 covering the right side building and facing the ocean. Both the Guardians and Kestrels will fly in that area. And tip number 7, salvos will annihilate the Swarmax, so store them up for the boss wave. If you are looking to stay up to date with the latest Gears of War 4 updates, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Until next time guys, this is Chris, have an awesome one.